For your entire life, you have probably been told that ancient human beings always lived short, miserable lives and dropped dead the moment they finally hit 30. It is a very comforting story that makes modern people feel incredibly lucky to be alive right now. But the actual truth is honestly something completely different. Almost nobody ever tells you this secret because it completely shatters the way we understand human history. We have been totally wrong about our ancestors, and the real biological limits of the ancient human survival machine will absolutely shock you to your core. You know the exact image I am talking about. Whenever we picture ancient hunter-gatherers, we imagine these frail, shivering people huddling in a damp cave, coughing their lungs out. The popular story goes that they were constantly sick, permanently exhausted, and completely worn out by the time they hit their 20s. And then, right around their 30th birthday, their bodies just gave up. They just dropped dead. That was it. Game over. Biological limit reached. That is completely wrong. It is a massive statistical illusion. We have all been completely misled by how basic math works. When you hear people say that the average life expectancy back then was somewhere around 30 years old, your brain immediately pictures a tribe of 30-year-old elders dying of old age. You picture them hunched over, barely able to walk. But that is not how averages actually work in the real world. The ancient world was brutally dangerous for babies. The infant mortality rate was astronomically high. When you have a huge chunk of the population dying from infections or predators before they even learn how to walk, it drags the entire mathematical average way down. It makes it look like the whole species was automatically expiring right before middle age. But the people who actually made it out of childhood, the ones who survived those deeply dangerous early years, they were definitely not dropping dead at 30, not even close. So, if they survived past puberty, what actually happened? So what actually happened when an ancient hunter-gatherer survived childhood? When they made it past puberty and did not die from a random infection or a wild predator, how long did they actually live? If you ask most people, they might guess maybe 40, maybe 45 if they were incredibly lucky. But researchers decided to actually look into this. They did a massive cross-cultural examination of hunter-gatherer longevity. They wanted to find the modal age of death. That is just a fancy way of saying the most common age for a human being to die once you remove the massive tragedy of infant mortality. When the results came out, they completely shattered the timeline of human history. These ancient people were not dropping dead at 30. They were not expiring in their 40s. If a hunter-gatherer survived the incredibly dangerous gauntlet of early childhood, the most common age for them to die was somewhere between 68 and 72 years old. 68 to 72. Just let that sink in for a second. That is basically a modern lifespan. That is a full, long life. Without modern medicine, without any antibiotics, without hospitals or surgery or daily blood pressure medication, they were hitting 70. This changes everything about how we picture the ancient world. They were not just a bunch of terrified teenagers and young adults running around trying to survive until their bodies gave out. They had grandparents. They had elders. They had people who lived long enough to get gray hair, wrinkles, and deep generational wisdom. These communities had generation overlapping, an entire system of memory, knowledge, and survival passed down from people who had lived on this earth for 7 decades. The human body was never designed to just break down at 30. It was built to last. It was an incredibly resilient survival machine that could push through decades of harsh winters, brutal physical labor, and constant movement. They did not need modern technology to reach old age. They just needed to survive the start. 70 years, pure survival. So, how exactly did these ancient humans pull this off? How did they manage to live all the way to 70 years old in a world actively trying to kill them every single day? It was certainly not just random magic. It was a very specific survival formula. And that exact same formula is literally sitting inside your DNA right now. First, look at what they were putting into their bodies. They actually survived on a deeply natural, completely primitive diet without any junk. There were no processed sugars, no artificial preservatives. They ate exactly what the earth provided, which forced their bodies to run incredibly efficiently. Then there was the movement. Their level of constant physical activity was absolute insanity. They were walking, running, carrying heavy loads, and hunting all day long. Their bones and muscles were just perfectly adapted to a harsh lifestyle of completely relentless motion. But it was more than just food and exercise. It was extreme genetic selection. The environment was so unforgiving that only the absolute strongest genetic traits were passed down to the next generation. That relentless filter created a blueprint for human longevity, a blueprint that survived for thousands of years. Now, this is where it gets highly personal. We always tend to look at these ancient hunter-gatherers like they are some kind of completely distant, entirely alien species from a different planet, like their story has nothing to do with us. But that is the biggest lie of all. That exact same biological machinery did not just disappear into history. It survived. It evolved. It got passed down over and over again until it reached you. You are carrying that exact same genetic code. The exact same potential for longevity is wired into your physical body at this very second. Your muscles, your immune system, your entire cellular structure was built by people who figured out how to live to 70 in the most dangerous environments on Earth. You are driving a ridiculously high performance, ancient survival machine. You just happen to be sitting at a modern desk with it. Look, the story we usually tell ourselves is that human beings are fundamentally fragile. We like to believe that without modern medicine, hospitals, and pharmacies, we would all just break down and expire before our 30th birthday. But that is simply a comforting lie we invented to feel superior to the past. We did not suddenly create human longevity inside a shiny modern laboratory. We inherited it. You are not some weak, delicate creature barely kept alive by modern convenience. You are the direct descendant of the ultimate survival experts. Your physical body was quite literally designed to outlast the harshest conditions on this planet and keep thriving for 7 long decades. You are built to survive. That is it for today. Now get up from that screen and go take a walk outside. Your ancient 70-year-old genome is getting really tired of you just sitting right there.